Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Food and Our Emotions. We're going to be discussing the Mediterranean diet, pros and cons, with one of our own, our expert, Mr. red.olaughlin. Let's bring him out and find out what he's been up to. Hello, Red.
Hello, Dr. JACALYN. I noticed that you were saying good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and I didn't realize how worldwide your program was until the other day. We were talking about where the demographics of USA Global TV and Radio Network go to around the world, and it really and truly is a global audience. So that good morning, good afternoon, and good evening is a very apt introduction.
Thank you, Red. I appreciate that. Yes, it is interesting, and I think part of the reason why we are so global is because we have show hosts and guests from all over the world, and then they're bringing their networks and their audiences here. So we're very, very grateful. Red, you have brought so much value to me personally and also to our platform. You are an expert in so many areas. You have your own Talking Heads show that you've been doing. I don't even know how many episodes it is. I think it's over 2 years at this point, but you bring so much incredible expertise and knowledge in that regard. You also have the show, The Wise Ones. You are one of our elevated listeners. You are starting your own platform very soon here with, I'm not going to spill the beans, but a panel show. And you also are a celebrated award-winning author, a publisher, a distinguished Toastmaster. And today you're going to provide insights about this Mediterranean diet. So thank you so much for being here.
You're making me blush. You may not be able to tell, but I can feel my face burn just a little bit there. But anyway, thank you so very much for the introduction.
Thank you.
The Talking Head show we've been doing recently is about weight management. Most people think dieting, but there's a lot behind what actually happens in the body scientifically in order to be able to gain or lose weight or maintain weight, as the case may be. I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. And whether that symptom happens to be something with diabetes or weight gain or anything else that we don't want in our lives, these disease-like symptoms, these are things that I find fascinating, and I research and I provide that first initial level of awareness and then some degree of education. Now, recently in the Talking Heads program, Dr. JACALYN, if you remember, we talked about when obesity started in the United States. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. I don't remember when, though.
Okay. In the mid to late 70s, 76, there's several things that changed at that point in time in our lives. And most of it happened to begin with the advent of what we call today ultra-processed foods. And when you start seeing things that have this added to it, this taken out of it, refined and refined and refined, and all of a sudden you're not getting the nutrients you used to get. And one of the side effects is that people gain weight. And when you gain weight, the tendency is now you start having, probably congestive heart failure, diabetes, issues with cognitive decline, just a lot of things that are associated with carrying that extra, and I'm not going to call it 10, 20, 30 pounds overweight. We're talking a lot more, say 40 plus pounds overweight. And it's very visible. very few people think about, well, what is my healthy weight? They always have that little extra 3 or 4 or 5 pounds of fat around the gut that, they can see, but hardly anybody else can see it. But they're focused on it, and they got to get rid of it. Well, sometimes it's relatively easy to do, and that's what we've been talking about for the last several weeks. But let's get back to our show today. So the
Thanks.
standard. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thanks, Red. Yeah, I was going to say I'm really in alignment with what you were talking about. I'm one of those people who's constantly obsessed about the 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds. It seems to drive me crazy. And because we are talking about food and our emotions, I found that when I am going through some stressful times, which, we all operate a certain level of stress, when it's more stressful, I really don't care as much about what I'm putting into my body. And that's really the time that you should be caring about it. So tell us what we need to know.
Well, stress is one of those things that causes doctor's visits. About 70% or more of doctor visits are in some way, shape, or form aligned with increased stress that has never been really abated. There are so many things you can do for stress. Smile is one of the easiest ones. Laughter, uh, exercise, get away from whatever the stress is. Just physically walk away if you can. That may be difficult if it's a boss or a spouse or a kid. But there are things you can do, but it's not something we do. I mean, we can do tapping where you go around and you do a certain mantra, and that works exceptionally well. There's breathing exercises. As I like to say, you take a deep breath and hold it for 30 minutes. Well, the world record for holding your breath is about 26 minutes plus a little bit, underwater, by the way. Uh, and yes, people can't hold their breath that long. So there's a lot of things we can do, but if you're stressed out, what we go to is our habit, what we've always done. It's that piece of cake, piece of pie, a cookie, something with a lot of sugar in it. That sugar makes us feel good. We sit down, we watch TV, zone out, whatever it may happen to be, or it might be, one glass of wine, 6 pack of beer or more. It doesn't matter. You go to something, and those things in and of itself, a little bit's not a big deal, but it's the repetition. I would go down. I was living in Germany in late '90s. I was on the Atkins diet at the time. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I lost 40 some pounds and was just having a time of my life. We're not going to talk about that right this minute, but I would go down to Italy for a weekend and pig out on pasta and bread and stuff. I'd gain 12 pounds literally in the 3-day weekend. I'd come back and I'd be 10, 11, 12 pounds heavier than I was, all water weight gain. 2 weeks later, I'm right back where I was because I wasn't eating that kind of diet. But every so often we go out and we celebrate. A couple weeks ago, I had my 55th wedding anniversary, and between the pie and the cake and the macarons that I made and ice cream and this and that and everything, I gained a few pounds. And it took about a week or so to get rid of it. But for us, when we think about food and our emotions, most of the time we're talking to the American audience, and that American audience has what we call the standard American diet, SAD. Well, it's standard American diet. I'm going to get into in just a moment. But the standard American diet is what this program and future ones here on the Food and Our Emotions on the USA Global TV Radio Network is going to focus on. We're going to be looking at the Mediterranean diet today, but there are several other diets out there. And are there pros and cons with each one of them? A diet in and of itself makes you think that it's just temporary. I'm going to be on this thing for a couple of weeks. I'll lose my, 10, 20, 30 pounds. Boom, I'll be right back to where I was again. And then you find out you gained everything that you lost. So we don't think of diets as a lifestyle. We don't think of it as this is the way we eat. But in reality, when we eat food, it is that fuel that our bodies need. Just like going to the gas station, you put gas in the car and then you zoom away. Well, we do the same thing. We shovel it down our throats and then we zoom away. And when we need more, we go back to it. And we have a habit. You wake up in the morning, that habit says, I have to have breakfast. Well, because you've had it every day for decades. But in reality, the first feeling you have is probably dehydration. And you take and drink a bottle of water. So I have this bottle here from this morning. The bottle of water will actually curb a lot of that emotional stress of I need something, the cup of coffee, whatever it is. But if you get your body rehydrated initially to begin the day, you're going to be in far better shape in order to to address those emotions and other things that creep up on the way to work or at work or whatever. But for us, let's talk a little bit about the Mediterranean diet. It's essentially a diet around the Mediterranean. So you got Greece and southern France and Spain and that part of Europe. It does extend down into North Africa, but not nearly as much. It does extend over to Turkey, but again, not nearly as much. But so we're thinking Italy, Greece, France, Spain. That's the primary areas. And what do they have? They have a lot of plant-based foods. So these are your fruits and your vegetables, and to some level, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, generally a lot of those kind of things. And there's no strict regimen that says in Greece you're going to have this, in France you're going to no. It's whatever your ancestors had when they were living there, because that's the food that's provided in the stores. That's the food that's grown locally, and everything you have can probably be sourced within about a 50 to 100 mile range of where you're living at. So if you're getting your meats, your cheeses, your milk, your veggies, your fruits, all that's coming from a local market. The Mediterranean diet also relies on what we consider to be healthy fats, which are primarily your omega-3 and to some level your omega-9. But let's just talk about your fats. You have omega-3 fats primarily from fatty fish. You have your omega-6, that comes primarily from your vegetables, your vegetable oil, your sunflower oil, your safflower oil, corn oil. However, we don't make these oils in our bodies. We need these fatty acids from our diet. But you need a proper ratio. If you get omega-3s and omega-6s on a 1-to-1 ratio, that's probably about as healthy as you need. But what happens in the standard American diet is that you'll get 20-to-1, 30-to-1, 40-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3, and that becomes highly inflammatory. Disease starts at the cellular level in the body. Chronic low-level cellular inflammation will lead to 90, 95, 98% of all disease. And so you're constantly on a daily basis, because of the food choices you have, you're taking those omega-6 fatty acids and you have way too many of them, and your body has inflammation and it never has a chance to really respond. Well, in the Mediterranean diet, you have these plant-based fruits and vegetables, which the standard American diet does not feature to the same level. Well, fruits and vegetables provide your antioxidants. They provide that ability to fight that cellular inflammation. And we get the standard American diet because of some of the other additives in the foods that we have. Yes, whatever fruits and vegetables that we might be using, we have an abundance of a lot of other issues that could create a problem there. The Mediterranean diet has a fair amount of fish, limited red meat. They're not looking at the same kind of stockyards for cattle and everything else we do, but they got their goats, their rabbits, in fact, that's one thing I was surprised when I was going to a store in Germany. I mean, almost a whole, I'm going to say as far as you can see, but a major section just on rabbits. And that's something that's a fairly staple in the German cuisine. But you're looking at things that are native there. So you get your sheep, you get your lamb, you get your goat, you have some level of beef and whatever. The dairy, same thing. You're consuming in moderate amounts because it's fresh. There's a lot of additives to it to make it last long, look better on the shelf. And then, of course, you get your fruit, your herbs and spices and all the other stuff that we don't even think about. We just salt and pepper, and that's a bit, not even pepper in many cases, just salt. And if you're using the standard white salt that has been processed and processed and processed, just like ultra processed, seriously consider getting the Himalayan salt or some sea salt. There's a lot of other nutrients that can be found in salt that will give you the same taste, but not detract from your health. And then we'll get to one of the topics here very quickly that a lot of us, some of us, love, and that's wine. Large quantity of wine consumed over in the Mediterranean. Most of it is red, but a fair amount of it's white. When my wife and I walked the Camino de Santiago, that's a 500-mile walk across northern Spain, I was amazed at my taste buds and white wine. I used to drink rosé way back when in the 70s, and then I gradually shifted to white wines, and then It took me a while, and I shifted to red wines, and then I wanted something dry, and that's what I've been having literally since as far back as I can remember. But the white wines in northern Spain, absolutely, I fell in love with. And they don't put the preservatives in there. There's just a lot of things there that just really, really taste good when you have them in the natural environment. I know, Dr. JACALYN, you like an occasional glass of white wine. Is there a reason why you prefer white to red?
Well, I've never liked grape juice. I guess I don't know. I don't like red wine. I don't enjoy it at all. It's kind of like a chore to drink it. And then sometimes I just get a headache. So that's why I always defer to Chardonnay.
Okay, that's a fair statement. There are some things in chocolate and red wine and some other things that give people headaches, give them migraines. And so it's not unusual. There are things you can do. There is a nitrate filter that I have that if I pour my wine through the filter, it takes out all the nitrates. That might be something that is of interest. You aerate it, you put more air into it, it has a better taste to it. You can take a $10 bottle of wine. If you take 2 large pitchers, pour the bottle of wine into one, and then just pour them back and forth about 10, 20 times. You're getting air in there. You're taking a $10 bottle of wine and you're making a $20 or $30 bottle of wine out of it because it has that extra oomph from all that aeration. You put it through the filter, and then all of a sudden you have a wine that doesn't taste like a $10 bottle of wine. So anyway, for what it might be worth there.
Good tip.
But in the American diet, what do we see? We see a lot of foods that are not necessarily as healthy. Let's just say they're processed foods. You go in the store and you walk around the outside area. Usually the first thing you're going to come across is your fruits and vegetables, and then your meats and your dairy and whatever. It goes around the outside, but all the center aisles are almost all processed food. And when you have something in a package, the processing to get that there is extensive, and you're going to end up with a lot of prepackaged foods that have unhealthy fats in it. They're going to be high in calories. You're going to have extra sodium. You're going to have extra toxins, and there's just an inordinate amount of toxins in American foods. It's just unbelievable. You take a look at what's allowed in American foods, and if you take a company like, say, Kellogg, if they're producing a food product for Europe, it may have 7 items in it. It gets to the United States, it's got 17 or 27 items in it, even though they're producing it and selling it because the restrictions on what you can put in the food in Europe are so high. Back in the States, they put all the other stuff in they take out. Why? Because it lasts longer. You pick up that package of cereal, and it looks 2 months old, but it doesn't look bad. And so it's to keep the food in shipping, to keep the food on the shelf. Anyway, a lot of issues there. Our typical American diet is very low in what I can, fruits and vegetables. If you look at how many green things or colored fruits and vegetables are on your plate on any given day, if you take a look, okay, let's think back now for the last week. What did I have yesterday? What did I have last night? What did I have 2 days ago? If it was a burger, if it was a steak, if it was chicken, whatever it was. Well, how many green things were on that plate? Chances are not very many. But the real crux of the standard American diet with this ultra processing is the extra sugar, extra carbohydrate, extra, just everything in there that's processed, that really and truly causes our blood sugar to spike up and up and up and up and up. And that's when we end up with some issues that over time we have insulin resistance. We also have an issue with diabetes. We have issues with gaining extra weight. Yeah, you take a look at the old people over there in Europe. Yeah, there is a problem. We have a tendency, anywhere we're at, it doesn't matter, that we'll have our favorite foods and we're going to overindulge occasionally. If I lived in Italy, I would probably have a problem because the last 2 times I been there, I think I had spaghetti for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My wife and the others that were with us, they could handle pizza once or twice a day, and then all of a sudden they couldn't handle it anymore. We have things, but if you're constantly going with foods that have high calories, high sugar, those kinds of things, you are going to put on weight. That's just the nature of the beast. So We look at the American diet as having a lot of the omega-6 fatty acids. I mentioned omega-9 a minute ago. That's your olive oil. It's not something we think about it as an omega fatty acid, but it is. It's omega-9. Is it needed for the body? No. There's no essential requirement for it. But it's one of those things that we can, in fact, have, and it does work out very, very well. We have a lot of, in the standard American diet, we have these refined grains, white bread, wheat bread, all sorts of breads. You got milk that has 2% this, no fat. I mean, just everything else is processed. You take everything in something and you take it out of it. And then you have to add stuff to it to make it look good. And then you have to add more stuff to it to make it stay on the shelf a longer period of time. A lot of issues there. We think we have a lot more meat options, protein options than the people over there in Italy and Spain and whatever. And we do. But a lot of our processed meat, your hot dogs and sausages and more fatty cuts of red meat. I mean, I buy bacon, but I buy bacon with no nitrates at all, uncured. So I get rid of at least that part. I buy almost everything that says organic on it, including the meat. And just because it says something doesn't necessarily mean that's the healthiest thing. We could do a whole show just on labels, but the things that I look for is no antibiotics, no extra things added. So if I'm looking for my meat, I'm looking for something that is going to be healthy for me. And again, the standard American diet, we don't have enough people eating salmon and other kinds of fatty fish. So it's going to be lower in American omega-3 fatty acids, higher in omega-6. So just going to be naturally a problem there. But the Mediterranean diet in and of itself, because of the low levels of omega-6 fatty acids, the higher levels of omega-3, they're generally going to have a better cardiovascular system. Their levels of heart disease, heart risk, those things are much lower than the United States. Again, you're looking at the primary oils they're getting is omega-9, the olive oil, and the omega-3 from the fish oils. I think all countries have some level of weight management. We have a very serious problem here in the United States because obesity wasn't an issue prior to the 1970s, and that's when this ultra-processed food came out. But you sit around. Most of us, when we're young, we're pretty active. Over in Europe, they walk a lot of places. If you're going somewhere, they're walking, and a lot of it's not flat. I can guarantee you that. But they have a lot of energy they're expending. But you get older, you become more sedentary, and that's kind of when you put on your weight. But we look at the neurodegenerative diseases. We look at the cancers. Europe does not have, they have them. They just don't have them as much as we do. But the anti-inflammatory effect of the foods that the Mediterranean diet eats provides you an extra level of protection. If I'm born here in the United States and I have a standard American diet, my health is not going to be as good as somebody my same age who's been living in Greece, France, Spain, as a general rule, because I have different foods. Now I go over there, I still have my same predisposition because I've always eaten a certain way. My insulin resistance, my leptin resistance, all of those things I'm taking with me because over there I don't have the same level of insulin popping in my body all day long because of the ultra processed foods. So I'm not going to have that level of resistance on some of the hormones that my body needs. But the gut health is another one. You're going to have a much wider variety of foods in your gut health in the Mediterranean diet than you are in the United States diet. The fruits and vegetables, as I mentioned earlier, give you that extra level of antioxidant protection, and that results in, generally speaking, a longer, healthier life. So do we have any real advantages of a standard American diet? What do you think, Dr. JACALYN?
I guess we have the knowledge that we need to read labels. I mean, there's a lot of things in the public domain that provide information, but from what I hear you saying, it's probably not a good diet to follow.
Well, I think you can go out and find whatever you want. I mean, if you want to eat healthy, you can go anywhere and find what you need to eat healthy. Whether it's in a restaurant, fast food, doesn't matter. You can find something that'll meet your requirement. But what do we have here that the Europeans don't have? Convenience and availability, affordability. we have stuff here that they can't even begin to think about as far as being able to walk into a store and get something. And that's because our distribution systems, we heard during the pandemic, supply and demand, the logistics chains were all, there's a lot of things we get. Why do we have cherries in the store at a certain time, or blueberries all year long, or whatever? Because they're apples. You take a look at what is available. I mean, I love blood oranges. They come out at a certain time of the year. I can go into a store, I can buy them. They're a little expensive, but I fell in love with blood oranges when I was living in Germany. But the blood orange is something that's seasonal. But I look at some other fruits and things in there, and they're not seasonal at all. They are available literally. Maybe I might not have my cherries like I'm seeing right now, but there are things there that I can walk in the store. If I want to get a fruit or a vegetable, especially a vegetable, I can get it just about any time of the year. So that availability, the convenience, to some level from a health perspective, an American diet, because it's fortified with the extra minerals and vitamins that the Food and Drug Administration says we have to do, you might have a better nutrient intake from some of that. But the downside is you have the caloric content that goes along with it. We hear about gluten-free. Well, if you look at gluten-free, it doesn't have the gluten in it. But when you look at what they did to substitute it, it probably has more calories in it. So there's issues with calories, way too many in most foods. But in the American stores, you can look around and you can find what you want. As you mentioned, Dr. JACALYN, and I think it's a key item, read the labels, because you can, in fact, figure out, okay, how many of these become one of these and how much of that. And so if you're trying to stay on a certain low sodium diet or a low carb diet or whatever it may happen to be, you can make that happen. And then the other thing we have, if I want to have Chinese food in Italy, I can find it anywhere. I want to have Chinese food in the United States, I can find it anywhere. But let's say I wanted to have Lebanese food. I won't find it in Spain or Italy or Greece, maybe a little bit more in Greece. But in the United States, we have the availability for cultural diversity all over the place. If it's made, you can probably find someplace in town for South American food, for Caribbean food, for, it doesn't matter, Thai, Indian. It just, the availability and the diversity of that particular food is unbelievable. Are there any real negative aspects of a Mediterranean diet that you might think of, Dr. JACALYN?
Boredom.
Why did you pick that particular word?
I don't know, eating the same things over and over again. I think that's why I have a problem sticking with something, because I get bored and I go back to unhealthy. So I don't know. That's the wrong answer. What is the answer?
Well, I don't know that that's a bad answer. It just wasn't one I was expecting to hear. Can you get bored with foods in your American diet?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you go out and eat a burger every single day because it's available and you just have to figure out whether it's this chain or another chain? Some I avoid, some I like. When I get a burger, most of the time I try to get it without the bread, because that's the part I don't want. So you sit there and you have lettuce and tomato and onions and your meat and cheese and whatever. So I can avoid the carb aspect of that, and I can do the same thing in a restaurant. If I'm going to my favorite German restaurant, I know I can't eat everything on the plate. Just impossible. If I do, I'm not going to feel good. But I know ahead of time it's going to be that much. And I also know ahead of time that I'm going to take half of this home. And so I plan accordingly. I go in there, I have my nice meal, but I know that I'm going to have one or two more meals with that. And so as I'm looking at whatever I'm buying, it's something that if you plan ahead of time, you can actually have what you really enjoy more than once, and take that $20. Used to be not before pandemic. My wife and I could go out, we'd share a meal, and generally we could have something to eat, not a snack, but a light lunch or a light meal for under $10. Now it's hard to have it for under 20. Most of the time it's at $14 to $18 range. So, prices of everything have gone up. But I think that the aspects that we don't really want to see so much in the Mediterranean diet is the fact that some of them are so nutrient dense that they become very, very high in calories. And this, I mean, you have your fats are very high in calories. So you get your nuts, you got just a lot of things there that are very high in calories. So if you're eating that same high calorie content every day, now you can have a problem with weight down the road. And so when let's say that I love spaghetti, well, I'm going to overconsume that particular aspect of that. And that's the problem I had with the Atkins diet. I was not paying attention to what else I should have been eating with it. And I had a lot of issues with bone density that I didn't find out about until many years later. And we'll talk about that on one of these shows, not today, but there are issues there that if you're not aware of it, you can be going down a path and think everything is just fine. And then all of a sudden you get to the end of the path and you say, I shouldn't have gone this far. And you back up. A lot of the problems with the Mediterranean diet, it has way too much sodium. And that's because some of the product, like olives, their anchovies, their other things, because of their preservatives and things, they have a problem. So if they have a health problem, it's probably going to be a hypertension, some kind of high blood pressure issue. And then, of course, the wine consumption, alcohol. It's not uncommon to sit outside for an hour or two, have a glass or two or three of wine, and just watch the world walk by. That's one of the things I loved about being able to just sit there anywhere and just have a glass of wine and just watch people. People watching is a wonderful thing to do. Anyway. I don't think it's as big a deal here I think it's as bigger deal in the United States than it is in Europe, but you have many options for vegans and vegetarians and all other specific kinds of food avoidance options. Over there in Europe, you don't have a whole lot of places you can just go in. It's a vegan-free environment or whatever it may happen to be. So when you start looking at that, there might be a problem there. And then the other thing, if you go over to Europe and you start eating their stuff because of what they have, we have not had that before. There might be an issue with some allergies or intolerances or sensitivity. So there might be some issues there. But those things don't compare to the negative aspects of the standard American diet. We have high processed foods, junk foods. Some of those junk foods taste pretty good, don't they, Dr. JACALYN?
Yes, they do. Although I'm not a big junk food eater, my demise is, and I was off of it for years. I'm so mad at myself about sugar. I started eating sugar again. So I said to myself today that I'm giving myself a week or so, and then I've got to stop.
The old give yourself a week.
You know why, Red? Because I'm not really committed to it at this moment. So if I say I'm going to do it, I'm not going to. So I have to succeed when I set goals for myself. So that would be failing.
Well, and I understand that gold star mentality, that there's a reason why you set that goal and you go out and you achieve it again and again and again and again. But let's say that you like a ding dong, just to pick, a snack food. The problem is we just can't eat one bite. We eat that and it's calling to us that sugar rush or that unctuousness, whatever it is and that's the way it's designed. It is really and truly designed for our taste buds, the mouth feel, all of those extra things that are added into the food make it taste so good that we can't just put it down. But
well, Red, wait, don't ding dongs or all ring dings. They all come in packages of two, right? Two.
Right.
It could be one for you, one for me, but two for me is even better.
That's right. And one bite leads to two bites, leads to both of them being gone before you know it, and they're gone. And so would a wiser thing be saying, okay, I am not ready to give up my ding dongs right now, for lack of a better word, but what I'll do is I'll have one bite and put it away. And if I can put it away, then I've conquered that particular need at that moment. Because sometimes all you need is just that one bite. Now, obviously, it'd be better not to have a bite at all. But sometimes from that stress perspective, whatever is out there, maybe that one bite is all you need. If you have creamy mashed potatoes on the table and it's part of whatever you're being, maybe all you need is that one or two bites. Thank you very much. Enjoy it, savor it. Know that it's there, but you're not taking any more. So it's a mental game. And but from the standard American diet, we have that extra level of sugar refined everything, unhealthy fats, just everything leads up. And the quality of the nutrient density of the fruits and vegetables that we have are not as great. The quality of the proteins are not as great. The level of healthy fats are not as great. Too much sodium. Just many things that in moderation will probably be fine. In fact, our brain actually has a connection to the stomach. When you're eating, somewhere about halfway through the plate, somewhere around a third to half of a plate, your stomach's going to tell the brain, okay, I've had enough. And you can actually hear that connection. When I was going through a particular program, I allowed myself to be hypnotized, and it was for a weight loss program. But the thing that I was really amazed at was, yeah, we have these connections, that communication going on. We don't pay attention to it. And so I get to a place where I could stop right now, but there's, as you say, there's an extra ding dong in the package. Why let it sit there? Why just, throw the package away and have the ding? But our body says, I don't need the rest of the food on that plate right now. But we plow through that. A lot of it's because, like my dad used to say, you're going to eat it or wear it, one of the way, because you weren't allowed to leave extra food on the plate. But all of us, you have a $30 or $40 meal. I'm not going to leave anything on the plate. I'll take a doggy bag home or whatever. So we force ourselves to eat everything. We get done and we're not feeling good. So we have a lot of issues there, and that lifestyle leads to a lot of chronic health issues, a lot of cancers, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease, just many kinds of things that are not healthy in the general world of health and wellness. So we're here where the standard American diet, if we choose our food properly and eat in moderation the things that we need, probably be okay. I probably have an easier time with the Mediterranean diet, but the negatives on that are not near as great as in the negatives or the cons here on the standard American diet. So we're here toward the end of the show. What questions did I not answer that you were looking to have answered coming in?
Well, thank you, Red. I think that was a fantastic presentation and overview. I think for me, the thing that is confusing is you could speak to one person and they could advocate for a carbs only diet. You could speak to someone else, it's a fat only diet. It's the Atkins. It's so confusing. And each of us have different, tolerances for food, different desires for food, and different health conditions. So it's not like one size fits all, right?
Well, you go to the store and buy some food, and you're standing in line, and it says lose 6 pounds in 6 days, or you go to YouTube, lose 30 pounds in 30 days, and you look at whatever's there, and if it's more than 6 hours, you're probably not going to do it. 6 days for somebody to do something is too great. They don't have the willpower, the stamina, unless whatever they're doing they love. If they love doing it, it's fine. But part of our problem is we don't have the discipline. Let's start with awareness. This program is for awareness. So we don't have the initial awareness of what it takes to become healthy, to stay healthy. Then we have that next layer up is the education. Okay, this is what that really means when you read it on the label. This is what happens when you have too much of this or not enough of that. Take, for instance, vitamin B12. You have it in a pill, it goes through the stomach, it's worthless because that vitamin B12 cannot be processed through stomach acid. It's a cobalamin. So you have to put it under the tongue. But if you're deficient in vitamin B12, it'll mimic Alzheimer's. And so later on in life, when you're not eating a lot of your fruits and vegetables and getting all your B vitamins, one of the things that can appear is a vitamin B12 deficiency, which a lot of gerontologists, first thing they do is you give a vitamin B12 shot and see if something changes, because that is something that's there. We're not aware of it. But with regard to the foods and things that we have a choice on, we tend to eat what we like to eat and not eat what we don't like to eat. There are some things I will avoid. I tell you right now, no way will I eat them. But there's some things that I love, and I would love to go back for seconds. I've mentioned this to you several times on other shows. If you have a problem with a few extra pounds, go to a smaller plate. Don't take the dinner plate. go to a salad plate and only one, whatever you put on that plate, that's it, no mas. And over time, you'll get to a place where you don't need as much on that plate. And there's nothing saying you can't leave food on that plate. But as you can start connecting with your brain and your stomach, there's going to be a point in time when you put that fork down and all of a sudden, click, there is a connection that says, I've eaten enough. But we have a tendency to just blow right through it. So that's what you need to do from an awareness perspective. See if there's a place when you're eating that your body actually says, oh, I'm fine. And remember that, because it's going to occur every single time you eat. But with this particular program, Food and Your Emotions, we talked a while back about, let's highlight several diets where we have a chance to go through them. What are they? What are the benefits? Are there any negative aspects of it? And then how do they really compare to what we get every day in America? Is that a fair statement, Dr. JACALYN?
It sure is, Red. I just wanted to share with you, this is really hilarious. Last night, my sister and I were sitting down to eat dinner, and I got out a dinner plate, actually. And as I was eating, and I thought, wow, I really want to go back for seconds. And I'm thinking, I hear Red going, salad plate, not 2 dinner plates. So I didn't have any more. And that was only because I heard your voice in my head.
But if you don't put the food on the plate, you're not getting the calories. So you're cutting back on the caloric intake, caloric restriction. And so that helps right there. And if you start getting used to it, it's like any other habit, that becomes the habit. I can't tell you. I mean, yeah, I probably had a full dinner size plate. I guess if I'm having a formal dinner someplace, I have a formal dinner size plate, or if I'm going out eating in a restaurant, I have a formal dinner size plate. But at the house for just normal stuff, I can't tell you last decade that I had not used a salad plate just for regular eating. It just doesn't happen. It's something we got out of the habit of many years ago. Doesn't mean you still can't get fat and overweight by a salad plate because you make the wrong choices in food. If all I do is pile pasta on that plate and that's all I have is that pasta, the bread that I pile on top of it, yeah, that's going to be a detriment down the road. But if I have some level of leafy green vegetables, colored fruits and vegetables, some good healthy fats, some good healthy protein, chances are I'm going to be in pretty good shape. But I also need to make sure that I have enough sulfur-laden vegetables in there so that when I go to sleep at night, my body can actually repair itself. And so there's just a lot of things. And as we go through this, we will make sure that everybody is as aware as we can possibly make it. So anyway, I think it's a good choice of yours to say, let's do some diets and educate the world.
Thank you, Red, and thanks for being on board with it and for giving your time and your expertise. How can people reach out to you, Red, and who do you want to contact you?
Well, from a perspective of speaking and writing, publishing, the best way to contact me is my phone number. It's on the crawler here, 281-687-1188, or just email me. Those are my 2 primary ways of contact. red.olaughlin@gmail.com. It's red like the color, R-E-D, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN @gmail.com. Either way, just call me on the phone. Yes, you can text me, but chances are I'm not near as responsive to a text as I am a phone call, and I will generally get back to everybody within 24 hours. But you need somebody to speak. You need somebody to help you with a book you're thinking about, those kinds of things. More than happy to chat with you.
Thank you, Red. Another fabulous show. I appreciate it. And we'll see you later today on The Wise Ones and Talking Heads.
I am looking forward to it. Take care.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Please do reach out to Red. As you can tell, he is quite experienced, quite knowledgeable, and he's quite open to having people reach out to him. And please do. That's why he's here. He wants to hear from you. Our next show is coming up. It's The Corner Bookstore, starring Diane Floyd Bame. We'll see you then. Bye.